like if you join another practice, they might call you partner, but ultimately you're not really a partner. You're not an equal share partner. We are partners. And I can't take credit for this model because this was started long before I stepped in it when I joined this. I was very lucky that this practice existed because I joined it right out of residency. And now I'm looking to give back. But I can't take credit for the visionary model that they had in creating this clear path to full equity partnership. And they sacrificed a lot because when they retired, the founding partners retired, they left with nothing. I mean, they did extremely well when they were here, but there was no buyout. There was no buyout. They just retired, and the next day they were gone.
Welcome to How I Doctor, where we're bringing joy back to medicine. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Brad Block, an otolaryngologist with ENT and Allergy Associates, the largest ENT, allergy, and audiology practice in the country. Brad spent close to a decade building an audience most physicians only dream of. His podcast, Succeed in Medicine, ran for years and hundreds of episodes that only I could dream of, and really made him a fixture in physician media. ENTA itself is something of a unicorn, independent in medicine right now, with over 500 clinicians and 170 partners, run by an elected physician board, working alongside an employed C-suite, with really a defined path to full equity partnership. In a moment when we've got private equity buying up ENT and allergy practices left and right, ENTA has really stayed physician-owned and grown into the biggest player in its space, and it reminds me a lot of my own practice with the Permanente Medical Group, the physician-owned group that represents Kaiser Permanente, Northern California. I'll be right back with Dr. Block after messages from these sponsors. Before we jump into the episode, I want to thank our sponsor, Evidently. Evidently is the clinical data intelligence platform built to help physicians harness the ocean of patient data they're drowning in every day. From chart summarization to AI-assisted note drafting and denial appeal support, Evidently makes sure the right data shows up at the right time. Physicians using Evidently report spending less time hunting through charts and more time focusing on patient care. That's why they've become a trusted partner to health systems looking to improve documentation, quality, and revenue sustainability. The company is led by providers and AI researchers that are dedicated to reducing documentation burden and helping clinicians practice at the top of their license. If you want to see what Evidently can do for your hospital or your practice, reach out today at www.evidently.com. Now, let's get into today's episode. The next generation of physician innovators are already thinking hard about AI in clinical practice. Offcall teamed up with MD+, a nonprofit community of physicians and med students across the country, to write the guide I wish existed when I started trying to make sense of all of this. It's called The Physician's Guide to AI, a practical primer across specialties. 9 specialties, 40 plus physicians, and it's completely free. Search for it now in the Kindle store or visit offcall.com. Dr. Bradley Block, welcome to How I Doctor. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. I've seen you in this space for a long time, and it's really an honor to be invited on your show, really, like to be amongst the giants that you've interviewed. Thank you so much.
Oh, no, thank you, Brad. I mean, like in the past year, 2, I think physician media has really exploded. Doctors are podcasting. There are physician influencers now on TikTok and Instagram. Some of these physicians have hundreds of thousands, millions of followers, probably hundreds of millions of impressions. You were really early to this kind of concept of physician media. I'm curious, at the time when you decided to go into it, what was your original thought and inspiration for making a physician-facing podcast?
So when I first joined practice, I was single. My office is on Long Island. And so I would drive from Manhattan to Long Island, because as one of my friends from residency like to say, the suburbs is where youth goes to die. So I was young and single, so I wanted to live in Manhattan. But it was a heck of a commute. And after going from residency to being an attending and having like no time whatsoever in residency, to have all this time I was burning in the car commuting, I was like, oh my God, I need to be productive with this time. So I started consuming podcasts. And then I started looking for podcasts for the questions that I had. And the question that I had that really came up most often was, how can I be faster with patients? Because I would see my partners being able to be efficient, seeing 4, maybe even 5 patients an hour and still go home somewhat on time, right? And yet I would struggle with like 3 patients an hour. I had no idea how they were able to get through their day as more efficiently than me. So I looked for communication podcasts, and there was none for physicians. The communication podcasts were geared towards sales, executives, dating. Dating was the biggest one. And so I created my own podcast because I wanted to take these communication experts, because they were out there, and focus their expertise with my lens on the physician-patient interaction in order to figure out a way not to just do it quickly, but in such a way that the patient experience wasn't sacrificed and maybe even augmented, right? So now I could come up with systems for optimizing the patient interaction so that I was respecting the time of the person in the waiting room, of the person who was trying to get appointments, right? And the patient in front of me. So there are experts out there that could teach that, or at least I hoped there were, but I didn't have a platform. I didn't have a venue, a way to email a stranger and be like, hey, can I have a conversation with you? So I created the podcast. It was really just for me.
Brad, what era are we in right now with physician media? I mean, you started your podcast back in 2018, where it was probably a very lonely space. And now, I mean, I can scroll TikTok and half my feed can be other physicians. And some of them are friends that I've subscribed to. Others are like online TikTok friends, and others I have never even seen before. It does feel like we're in kind of a different era of physicians wanting to have our messages received through social media without a filter of a health system or larger medicine. How are you viewing physician media today?
Well, I think as with most things, we're like 10 years behind.
Yeah.
Right? Like what personal computers, people had them in their houses in the mid 80s, and we didn't start having them in our exam rooms until like 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
We still use fax machines and beepers. There are these professional influencers out there, and it's been a space that's been established for a long time. And we're just kind of getting into it now because I think people were so afraid of backlash from putting themselves out there. Everything always has to be perfect when you're in medicine, right? And so if you're going to misspeak, if you're going to say something that maybe ends up being misconstrued, or maybe you weren't as sensitive to a subgroup out there as you could have been, and then you get raked over the coals for it. So I think people were afraid to put themselves out there. They're also, because so many of us are employed, not me, but so many of us are, right? You have to worry about them. In fact, when I started the podcast, I had to run it by my practice. And so they were like, yes, send us the episodes, because they wanted to make sure I'm not seeing things that are off the wall.
Yeah.
And then after a couple of episodes, I realized they're not listening to this.
Yeah.
So then I just stopped and I kept going. And it was, but like, you're afraid of getting called into HR. But now we're realizing, because so many people are out there putting out good information, that it just kind of snowballed from there, but we were late to the game. There's also the pushback against misinformation, right? In COVID, we saw how dangerous misinformation can be, and there are a lot of great physicians out there now, and thank God for them, because that was something that never interested me.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes people feel guilty that they're not doing it, and to them, I would say, for the people who enjoy it, do it. If you don't enjoy it, don't feel bad about it. Just figure out what lights you up and do more of that. Part of it is we're late to the game and we're just coming to it now. And the other is the pushback against all the misinformation out there. Just, it makes us so mad. And that is a powerful motivator to go out and put out good information. And there are some extraordinarily talented physicians who are out there putting out their information. And sometimes some of them will make a misstep and then they get raked over the coals. So there's risk involved.
Yeah, I think we are trying to find our way. I think we are generally held to a different standard than maybe anyone else in social media in society, right? Like there are things that a non-doctor, nurse, pharmacist, whatever, could say on social media, and people could be like, oh, they're an influencer. They're supposed to be controversial or whatever. And then if you are identified as a medical professional, that then also says that you are held to a completely different standard about not just medical misinformation, but ethical standard, decorum, professionalism, all of those things. Brad, maybe I'll transition us to talk a little bit about ENTA, because I also have worked at TPMG, the medical group that's physician kind of owned and controlled as well. You've called ENTA a unicorn. What has made ENTA, I guess, be interested in staying independent, be able to stay independent when there's probably pressure, if you're seeing a trend, to be acquired or take a big sum of cash?
So it's inherent in our model. So our model is that when you join, let's say you finish your residency and fellowship, although, I don't want to imply that you have to do a fellowship. I haven't done a fellowship. Most of the otolaryngologists haven't done a fellowship. We're going to give you a contract, and it's going to make very clear how you can become partner, right? And if you do those things, then you become a partner who has just as much equity as me, as one of the founding partners, of whom there are actually very few at this point. There's no buy-in, there's no buyout, and at this point, somewhere around 170, it's always changing because, we might have just promoted someone to partner and we might have had someone retire.
Yeah.
And so when you have 170 partners, it doesn't work the same when private equity wants to buy your practice. Because if you had 5 at the top with, 50 physicians, then those 5 stand to make a chunk of change. And they're probably going to exit in a couple of years, right? But when you're mostly partners, which is what we have more partners than non-partners, right?
Yeah.
Because that's our model. Our model is to make you a partner, and we have very little attrition. Getting 170 physicians to agree
on
to
anything,
what a good deal like that, right? That's going to be tough because you're going to have some physicians who just became partner, and they're not even 40 years old yet, and you have another physician who's a partner and she's 70, right? Those two people are going to want very different things from a deal. And also, we have partners that make twice as much as other partners because they really hustle. Whereas someone else that's like, you know what? I don't want to hustle. I want to enjoy my life. And so a good deal looks very different. So then getting everyone to agree on it is part of the problem. The other part of the problem is that why would we sell? Why would we possibly sell? What could they possibly do for us that we don't already do for ourselves, right? The only thing that I've seen out there from private equity is that they roll practice up and turn them into us, right?
Oh, interesting. Yeah. And then they could take a chunk of change off the top. Yeah.
What, are they going to make us more efficient? No. Because of economies of scale, we are efficient. Like, we have an efficient leadership system. We are able to negotiate good contracts with insurance companies because of our size. We benefit with purchasing because of our size, with hiring, like all of that. You can just, if you want to join our practice, you can just put your head down and see patients and go home, and that's fine. But we also have a number of committees that advise the board. You can be on the board. We're self-insured. So if you want to get involved in that aspect, you're really interested in the EMR. We're actually going to be going to Epic soon. You can get involved in that. So you can get involved in part of the practice. I was recently elected to the board of the practice. So you can get as involved as you want or not at all, but you'll still own the same amount. And so what could they possibly do for us that we don't already do ourselves?
Yeah.
And the decisions that we make as a board, because we all practice full time. So I'm not going to make some decision that is going to make my life harder just to make a couple of extra bucks.
Yep.
In fact, it might make sense to lose a little money if it's going to make my life much better.
Yeah.
Right? And so the decisions aren't just financial. And so when you have someone who's practicing full time making those decisions, it's going to be very different than someone who's running a private equity run company who is trying to squeeze blood from a stone.
A quick word about today's sponsor, Evidently. Their platform turns an ocean of fragmented clinical data into concise, actionable insights, chart summaries, note drafting, denial appeal support, HCC capture, so you spend time caring, not chasing. A transplant surgeon at a large academic medical center recently took transplant referral review from 2 hours to 20 minutes with AI-assisted chart review from Evidently. Physicians deserve workflows that improve accuracy, reduce exhausting chart biopsy, and help us practice at the top of our license. If you want to see how this might work in your hospital or your department, go to evidently.com. That's evidently.com to get started today. Do you have secrets on how you've been able to scale ENTA and keep it efficient and growing? Is it just treating your people good? Is it, what's the magic?
I think it's the clear path to full equity partnership, right? I think where else, like if you join another practice, they might call you partner, but
there's actually 5 people at the top that,
So there's a way that they do it where they call you partner without actually giving you equity, or they give you some minority share. But the person who, right, and I can understand that, like you founded a practice from nothing. You took out loans, you visited a bunch of doctors,
took
risk. Yeah. You did that. You're not going to want to give that up so easily. And so, you take on a partner, you give them a 5% to 10% share, but ultimately you're not really a partner. You're not an equal share partner. We are partners. And I can't take credit for this model because this was started long before I stepped in it when I joined this. I was very lucky that this practice existed because I joined it right out of residency. And now I'm looking to give back. But I can't take credit for the visionary model that they had in creating this clear path to full equity partnership. And they sacrificed a lot because when they retired, the founding partners retired, they left with nothing. I mean, they did extremely well when they were here, but there was no buyout. They just retired, and the next day they were gone.
Yeah, that's wild.
But the legacy that they've left in creating this practice, and the way I see it is, I have a responsibility to help manage this practice in such a way that it is available for future graduating residents in the same way that it was there for me.
Yeah, I love that.
Right? Like we have a great place to practice. And it's a big responsibility, not just for the people that are practicing now, but for the future of otolaryngologists and private practice in general.
Have you found it easier, the fact that the specialties in ENTA have a lot of overlap in the Venn diagram? Audiology, obviously, with ENT, and then allergy has a lot of overlap with the ear, nose, and throat system too. Like, do you think it would be a way bigger challenge if you guys were like, hey, we're going to go into urology or orthopedics or some other thing that isn't as closely connected in terms of the systems of the body?
Would we need to find that type of synergy? In cross referrals in order to make it work? I don't think it's critical. I really don't, because I think that we have a model on how to run things efficiently in such a way that is sustainable. And certainly there would be nuances to different practices, right? Like dermatology, for instance, right? Like they do some cosmetic, they do some, and we have facial plastic surgeons in our practice who do cosmetics. So we have some, but they have different equipment. They've got different overhead. They might require different support staff. A lot of lasers, dermatology. People say doctors are bad at business. And I say for 2 reasons. 1, we're not interested. And 2, we haven't been focused on it. Yeah. So this is all attainable knowledge that if we just decide to do it, we can do it. I think we've got this model that is appealing if you want to stay not employed, if you want to stay in practice and not work for a health system and not work for private equity.
Brad, when you have a practice this size with so many specialists, how do referrals actually work? Are some things passed off same day, or are you doing a lot of pre-work with trying to get information from patients or primary care doctors early to make sure that the referrals are kind of optimized? How are you guys managing the volume you must see of new patients, return patients, all of that?
It's not really a struggle, actually. That's not really a challenge for us. We're able to handle the volume. Now you have a handful of doctors that have a particularly long wait
Sure.
time, right? Because they're super
Yep.
specialized and they've got people coming to see them from far and wide. But we've got a large share of general otolaryngologists, sometimes called comprehensive otolaryngologists. I don't really love the term comprehensive otolaryngologist. We're general otolaryngologists. We're generalists, okay? We're not specialists, therefore we're generalists. I don't know what comprehensive means.
It's a better word than generalist.
It is, but let's be honest, we're general. And so, if you see one of the generalists, if it's a very niche problem, we might have to send you to one of our super specialists.
Yeah.
For instance, if you have a cholesteatoma, I don't drill out mastoids. So I'm going to be sending you to one of our neurotologists, but I'm going to be, working you up first and teeing you up so that everything's done by the time you get to them. I might even be explaining how the surgery works and some of the risks involved and go over your imaging. But we've got enough physicians that it's really not a wait time. In terms of getting you an audiology visit, oftentimes we can do same-day audiology. So if you come in and you've got an ear complaint, it's actually something that I'm working on now in the practice in order to make sure that scheduling is more efficient so that if you do come in with an ear complaint, we are able to get you a hearing test at that visit almost all of the time.
That's awesome.
Without overwhelming our audiologists, which sometimes also happens, right? Because we do see a large volume of patients. And so then they've got to do a large volume of hearing tests one day, but then the next day everyone comes in with sinus problems. They don't need to do any hearing tests. So we're trying to figure out a way to help them not get overwhelmed on those days. So it's a logistical problem in terms
like
of scheduling.
Some load balancing or something.
Exactly, which I am currently working on, actually. I owe someone a phone call. So we're working on that. But from the patient's perspective, we're almost always going to be able to get that hearing test the same day. And if we're going to get it a follow-up, it's because it's not critical we get it the same day, right? And also same goes with allergies. Sometimes people come in with a complaint that's, it seems like they have allergic rhinitis. They need to be worked up for allergies, but they saw me. So I'll, make sure it's not chronic sinusitis. I'll suck them on nasal steroids, and then I'm going to refer them to the allergist. I'll make sure they're off their oral antihistamines so they can actually get skin tested at the time. You're always adding value during those visits, but it might not be all wrapped up in the same visit.
Yeah. You take a ton of referrals from the community as a specialist. What's the ideal referral pathway for you? Is it like a PCP sends a referral to ENTA and then you guys have enough detail to triage it to the right person, or are people sending referrals directly to Dr. Brad Block and then you are just deciding, okay, now that you're inside the system, I can manage you, or I can get you to allergy or whatever?
It's really driven by the primary care physician or the patient themselves. Like they pick the doctor, or they just say join ENT and allergy, and then it's based on the patient's schedule. Like, oh, when would you like to be seen, right? But we're most of us see most things. It's not like an academic practice where you've got your head and neck attending and you've got your otologist and your laryngologist and your rhinologist and your peds. Most of us see most things, and most of the things that we see can be handled by everybody. And if you've got such a complicated problem that it needs to be seen by a subspecialist, then fine, we'll send you on, what I was just describing. Our patients come to us undifferentiated.
Yep.
For the most part. And then we take care of them for that. And most of the time you get taken care of by whoever happens to see you, because you don't need, a tertiary level academic center type care.
Yeah. Well, I got to ask, as as someone with benign paroxysmal positional vertigo himself, do any ENTs actually like dizziness and vertigo? Because, that's the other thing that ER doctors just absolutely abhor is, oh God, dizzy.
So most otolaryngologists do not like seeing dizziness.
Yeah.
Most don't. I happen to love BPPV because people come in like terrified that they've got something awful going on.
Yeah, they have a stroke,
and
or they've got a mass or something.
Cured.
Yeah.
They live cured. They're like, oh my God, you're a magician.
Yes.
It's magic. And then they send all their friends thinking that I'm going to help all them with their dizziness that they think is vertigo, but it's not vertigo.
Yeah.
And then they confuse like positional vertigo with postural dizziness. It's dizziness is complicated.
It sure
Dizziness is
It sure
complicated.
is.
And of the subset of dizziness that I feel is like the most unsatisfying for everyone involved would be disequilibrium.
Yeah.
With just like, I just feel
Yes.
off. I just feel off
Yeah.
because they're really suffering.
Yes. Yes.
But without any more specificity, there's vestibular rehab, like to help you with your balance, but like disequilibrium is just, that's the toughest. But give me a BPPV any day, as long as it's not like some like weird subset of like superior canal,
Right.
cupulolithiasis, not like, because classically it's posterior canal, canalolithiasis, right? But there's some subsets out there that like, you're like, well, the nystagmus is horizontal, but it's only on one side. Like it can get pretty hairy.
I mean, I will say, I had my workup. It did feel a little punitive getting on a tilt table. I think he was trying to be thorough as like, oh, I don't want to miss something in a colleague, which I was like, I said, Mickey, you can just tell me it's BPPV or it's in my head. It's fine. And so, but we did the tilt test, and that did seem like a torture chamber for cold calorics and
VNG, the calorics are brutal. Actually, the Academy guidelines for BPPV is if the symptoms are classic and you elicit the vertigo, you elicit it on Hallpike, and you treat it. You don't need to do anything else.
Yeah, I think he couldn't elicit it. And again, I think it was all in my head.
Got
anyways. Question our last few minutes here. Let's see, it's 5 years from now. It's 2031 somehow. Do you think more physicians are going independent? Are they following an ENTA model where there truly is equality in ownership, control? Or do you feel like you guys are still maybe the exception?
I don't know how this model happens again, because it took a big sacrifice on the part of the founding partners to be able to get it share started. Their equity, get it started, and be able to share that equity in this way. I don't see many others following that model.
That's I never thought of it I thought you were going to say the exact opposite, but I think you're right. Like if I was starting out a new ER group and I took all the risk, and I think I would also say like, oh wait, I should have more than other people.
Yeah.
Like that. It's interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
When I talk to people who are in other specialties, because I'm never going to lead any otolaryngologist or allergist away from my practice, but I spin it in that way. I said, if you're going to join a private practice, one of the things that you need to ask them is like, how much is equity worth to them, right? Because you took risk, right? You sacrificed financially in order to create this thing. That has a monetary value. And so if you decide ahead of time what that monetary value is, you agree upon it, then there's a path to equity. But you have to ask that question before you're wrapped up in it. Because if you've been working there for 5 years and now you're a partner, but you're not really a partner because you don't have that equity stake, you're already in too deep. Like it's too late.
Yep.
Like if you're interviewing for a practice, one of the things I learned is the interview actually, the negotiation begins when you're interviewing to be in the practice, right? Like that's when you're learning what they really want out of you. And that's where your leverage really is. Because once you get that contract, they know you're joining them.
Yeah.
Your leverage is gone.
It's gone. Yeah.
You're not walking away because you're already in too deep. So in the same way, if you've already been practicing there for a while, you're not likely to walk away. And so before you even begin, figure out how much that equity is worth and try and create a path. It might be a very long path, but it has a monetary value to that person. And so it might be worth it now, some people just want to be employed. And that's fine with them. And in fact, in our practice, even if you're a partner, you can treat it like you're employed because you just see your patients and go home. Yeah. You don't have to get involved in the management. But I think that's the reason it's unlikely is because it's going to be hard to just passively. But you know what? Yeah, everyone, you get equity, everyone gets equity, right? It's not. That's unlikely. That being said, there's going to be a point in time when there's the blowback against private equity and the blowback against all these employed physicians, and they look for something better. And
whatever lifts them up. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're out there, we're out there. If you're feeling it, you were bought by private equity. Like you are a commodity that was purchased with the sale of your practice, and you don't appreciate that, and you don't like the way that they're treating you. Come talk to us.
ENTA is hiring. Yeah.
ENT and Allergy. We're looking.
Last question for you, Brad. This has been great. If you could wave a magic wand and fix the biggest challenge for independent practices, what do you think you're using your magic spell for?
Capitol Hill. Capitol Hill, because those big health systems have lots of money for lobbyists, and we don't. And they get all this money from facility fees, and so they're able to influence reimbursement in ways that we are not. We're at a big disadvantage. And so if we would be on equal footing with them somehow in terms of being able to lobby Capitol Hill and navigate how policy decisions are made, we'd be in a much better place.
Yeah, I love that. Like that does seem to be a bit of a unifying cry from independent physicians and even ones that are employed by maybe even a health system. Like I think I've seen this a lot from the spine and orthopods a lot, like the trend, and I think there's another cut in 2027, like the trend for a joint replacement is like, oh yeah, $250 for and it's like on the health system side, the health system will supplement that physician fee with a bunch of more money that they're getting, to your point, to make it so the orthopods, yes, making more than $250 for a knee replacement, but just the downtrend in the value of the human being doing the procedure to replace the knee, and they're getting $250, not just for the knee, but also for the follow-up care as the payment to the human doing the work, has been like, that's where we're headed.
For us, there was something that President Obama said, like when he was talking about the Affordable Care Act decades ago, and mentioned something about use tonsillectomy as an example. And all the otolaryngologists went, because we're actually reimbursed. We're not incentivized to take out tonsils. We're not incentivized to do really most surgeries because our time is better spent in the office than it is in the operating room. So we're not incentivized to spend time in the operating rooms. But again, question from the beginning, you got to decide what lights you up.
That's right.
And if you're seeing stuff, if thyroids light you up, like you got to keep doing them. Got to keep doing them. Like I love seeing kids. I do tubes, tonsils, and adenoids, like tons of them. Because I love seeing kids.
Yeah.
Do kids pay well? No, but I enjoy my job.
That's right.
And so we're incentivized to stay in the office, not go to the operating room, which is preposterous. I mean, should we be incentivized to do surgery? Right? There is the conflict of interest there, and I understand that. But at the same time, there is like one of your joints gets infected. Like holy cow! Like the complexity that goes into these types of surgeries and the care required and all the explaining beforehand and the workup and everything, like to get reimbursed poorly, it's just a crime. But the health systems are able to find a way to recoup through all of their facility fees. Now I understand this is all very complicated because they do take care of populations of the uninsured and they got to eat the cost, and they take a lot of Medicaid where they're not reimbursed very well. So I do, but nobody's really sad for the health systems here, right? Like they've got levers that they can pull that we just don't have. So yeah, that's the magic wand, is equal footing on Capitol Hill somehow.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Brad Block, it's been an absolute pleasure to get to talk to you. Brad, where can people find you, see you, hear more about you?
So, I'm still on social media, but I'm not active. I actually, because I stopped the podcast in April, I am not really posting because I had people that took snippets and did my postings for me. So I still have the handle of @SucceedInMedicine on Threads and on Instagram, and I'm on LinkedIn as Bradley B. Block. Middle initial is B as well. So they can find me there if they want to message me and have an interesting conversation, because it's like having interesting conversations.
Amazing. Brad, thank you so much. Really appreciate it today.
Graham, thank you.
Thanks for joining me today. For interviews with physicians creating meaningful change, check out offcall.com/podcast. You can find How I Doctor on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll have new episodes weekly. This has been and continues to be Dr. Graham Walker. Stay well, stay inspired, and practice with purpose.